If you're running your law firm by checking your bank balance and hoping there's enough money there, this episode could completely change how you think about cash flow.
Welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast, the show where law firm owners learn to build wealth, scale their firms, and design the life of freedom they deserve. Hosted by Darren Wars, business and wealth advisor for law firm owners and author of The Lawyer Millionaire, this podcast delivers the strategies and inspiration you need to break free from the grind and become the financial success you envision. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast, and we're here with Leah Miller. Leah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this.
Absolutely. We want to talk about cash flow today, and we're going to be getting into the profit first system a little bit as well. But I want to start off with a big question. In your experience working with law firm owners, what's one belief about money you see that many law firm owners get wrong?
One belief that they get wrong. I find a lot of time law firm owners don't think they need to lead with the financials. And, it kind of comes second. We make operational decisions and we hope that those decisions bring in the cash and then we don't have to worry.
Sure.
The whole check the bank account, is there enough money in there today kind of thing. So I think that's where a lot of law firm owners kind of miss the mark is you can look at the financial data and get information from it that will help you make those operational decisions. And then you're not hoping that the cash catches up.
Yeah, I think I've done that myself in my own business many times, kind of operating on faith, and then checking the numbers in the rearview mirror. But we need to be a bit more forward thinking in looking at our numbers. Is that what you're telling us?
Absolutely. And I get it. In the very beginning of starting a business, I've been there. You're just trying to get everything you can, get done. You bring in as much money as possible, bootstrapping what you can. But as your firm grows, there is a lot to be said for looking to the future and using your financials in the future instead of just looking at the past and hoping it works out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You can get yourself into trouble if you're not. Your main area of expertise is fractional CFO work for law firms and bookkeeping. So today I want to talk just a little bit about the Profit First system. This quarter, we're reading Profit First in our masterclass series. Going to be discussing that and diving deeply into it. So for those who aren't familiar, Profit First is a way to streamline your cash flow to help you basically do bookkeeping with your bank accounts, right? Tell us a little bit about it from your perspective, Leah.
So it's essentially planning ahead and looking to the future and deciding ahead of time, how much money am I going to spend on expenses? How much money am I going to pay myself? How much money do I need to put away for taxes? I know for me personally in my business, I started doing the transfers early on because I saw people who don't have the cash for taxes when the time comes.
Oh
cash
my goodness.
goes really good in the summer. And then all of a sudden we get to April and we thought we were going to have the same cash flow and we don't. So I started, following the principles early on in my business because I wanted to have the confidence that I had the tax money. From there, and I do this with my clients, we look at percentage of revenue and how much we want to spend on our people and our marketing and our operating expenses. And that's essentially what the system is making that decision ahead of time. And then when you go to make a hire, you hire somebody within that plan. Every hire I've made in my firm has fallen into, this is how much money I am going to spend on operating or, on payroll or whatever, however you figure it out. And so it's essentially coming up with a plan ahead of time that works for your individual goals because everybody has different goals. I need to make a certain amount of money. You need to make a different amount of money. The person over there needs, so you decide how much are you paying yourself and then work backwards from there.
Yeah. I've used the system myself in my business, and I've seen how helpful it can be and transformative it can be. Um, it's really about knowing kind of where you are at a moment's notice. Hey, I have money set aside for this because there's money in that account. So many law firm owners I've talked with, I'm like, okay, trying to help them have a conversation about their business and like, okay, where are you financially? And they have no idea. It's like, well, my bookkeeper is supposed to give me the numbers next week. I haven't gotten them for this quarter yet. It's been a month or whatever. And not knowing where you are, where your financial position is, that can be really dangerous, right?
It really can. And that's my biggest thing that I am constantly saying to law firm owners is I just want you to be aware of the numbers. I want you to look at your financials on at least a monthly basis. I have clients where I'm looking at it with them on a weekly basis because cash flow is a little tight. So we're looking at it more often. And being aware of those numbers and being aware of your plan for the future of this is how much I want to spend on marketing. A lot of times I talk to marketing professionals in the legal field all the time, and they're like, they sit down with their clients and their clients are like, I have no idea how much money I can spend. And so when you have this in place and I can spend $20,000 a month and that $20,000 is there and I don't have to think twice about it, that gives you confidence in the growth of your firm. And that just propels you forward for sustained growth over time.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're small, this is kind of how it worked for me. When I was just me, I would keep track of my numbers in an Excel spreadsheet and just kind of like I knew like how much money was in the bank, okay, what things I know I'm going to have to pay for in the next, 3 to 6 months or whatever. But as the operation grew, that became a little bit more stressful, a little bit more time intensive to have to keep up with. Um, and it was always nerve-wracking to me to know, like, okay, how do I know I'm leaving enough money in for taxes or to pay myself or to pay operating expenses? So the profit first system for me helped me abandon my Excel spreadsheet to just be able to let the system do its thing. In your work, do you have any great stories of how, helping clients get organized with their cash flow and setting up a system has really been transformative for them?
Yeah, I always tell people there's not one big thing to change. So like sometimes when I start working with people, they expect me to look at their financials and be like, this is the problem right here. And we're going to change this. And then all your cash flow is going to be fixed. And what it really is consistent review of the finances, which is step one, and making small changes over time. So, making the intentional decision of this is how much I'm spending on marketing, this is how much I'm spending on operations, this is how much I'm spending on my people, and then tweaking that as you go. And I think that's what the system helps you do is with your cash flow, you get a better idea of, okay, I know that these are my expenses. And that's what a lot of what I do is we do a budget and we see what the break even is. And law firm owners, I'll say, it's costing you $100,000 to keep your firm just open. And it's a mind-blowing number sometimes because they've never actually sat down and looked at that. And so if we start there, then we know how much do we have to have in savings or how much is it going to cost, to run the firm every month? How much in revenue do we need and things like that? And so like it's little things over time that help the cash flow and give you the sustained growth. And there's no big, I don't ever come in and say, fire these 3 people, get rid of this large expense, don't have your coach anymore. Like it's never that. It's starting with, okay, what's the plan? And if you come in and you tell me, yeah, I need to bring home $40,000 a month, I'm like, great, sounds good. This is what you have to do to be able to afford that. And if you can't stuff or generate more revenue or whatever it is, then cash flow is always going to be a problem.
Yeah, yeah. We're always signing up for things like, oh, it's only, 500 bucks a month or it's only $1,000 a month. Well, before you know it, these things are really adding up fast.
Yep. Yep, it does.
Yeah.
It creeps up on you really fast. And when you actually see those numbers and see the percentages of revenue, when I tell somebody like, hey, you're spending
Yeah.
10% of your revenue on this line item, they're like, oh, there's one where like storage expense. I see it on several clients. They're paying to store old files because we haven't, scanned them in or done whatever. And it's like 3% of your revenue is being spent on a storage expense. You could
Yeah.
hire somebody to do it. And, like it's those little things that we're like, okay, so let's make this change. And then that's the cash flow going forward where you're not operating out of reaction. You're operating out of the plan that you have for your firm and you're taking control of that.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned the plan because it all goes back to your vision and where you're trying to go with your business. And are the things that you're doing getting you there? And having those numbers is what's going to help you evaluate things and if those things are actually productive for you. Like let's get some absolute facts here. Let's get some KPIs in place. Let's have some financial metrics so we can see, oh, in Facebook leads, my cost per lead, my cost per client acquisition is really, really high, but I'm doing a lot better over here with TikTok or whatever. You know what I mean? But being able to make those decisions, first you got to have the data, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest thing is collecting the data. And so you have to start from the beginning collecting the data or start from today when you decide to do it so that you have meaningful data to look at. And, for like on the marketing front, a lot of times, people hear the benchmark of you need to be spending 15 to 20% of your revenue on marketing. Great. Let's spend 15 to 20% on marketing, but is it doing what we need it to do? And that's where you have to go back and look at the data of, is it working? Are leads increasing? We've increased our marketing spend over the last 6 months, but we're getting the same amount of leads we were getting a year ago. Something's not working. Let's dig into it deeper. Or do we actually need to spend more money on marketing right now? We're getting more than enough leads. We can't move cases through the pipeline. We actually need another attorney. And so that's where, a lot of people get hung up on the benchmarks. And people ask me all the time, what are the benchmarks for a law firm? And I can tell you, we're going to spend, 10 to 15% on operating, 15 to 20% on marketing, 30 to 40% on people, and then here's your profit margin. But you need to look at it of what makes sense for your firm and your plan. I have clients that are spending 2% of their revenue on marketing because they're getting awesome referrals and they don't need to spend more on marketing. I have people that are a little bit higher on their their wage cost because, they want to work less or they need somebody to do some of the work. So like you have to look at your firm and your plan.
You really, really do. Yeah, those benchmarks like, oh, you think like 15% on marketing. Okay, so let's just find some marketing stuff to spend money on and make sure it's fit. No, that's backwards. Starting from the wrong point here.
Absolutely. And I do say, hey, you're only spending 10%. Let's talk about your marketing. I do think you could go up to 15 to 20% if that's what's needed. Let's make sure it works. Let's not jump from 10 to 20%. Let's go from 10 to 12%, see what's working, then increase it incrementally so that we have a plan. And I think that's what like all of this conversation goes back to is we have to have a plan and be intentional with our finances. That's that's number one. What every law firm needs to do is have a plan and make intentional financial decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the profit first system is maybe a starting point for that. To break it down for you, the listener, if you're not familiar, it's really simple. You have an income account where money flows into, and then as the name implies, you have several sub accounts and profit's the first one. So you have your profit account, you set a certain percentage going in there. You have your tax account, which is really, really critical because you want to be able to pay taxes. And that is such a huge one. We're working, we're making money, we're feeling good. We've got money coming in, but Uncle Sam is going to be waiting to collect. So we need to make sure we're setting aside enough there. Then you have your owner's comp, making sure that you are paying yourself. We talked on one of the previous episodes in the cash flow series on making sure you are paying yourself as an owner and making sure that's a line item in your budgeting. And then lastly is your OPEX. So you kind of flips the script. You've got OpEx at the bottom. That's what we have left over to spend. And it's a smart way of doing it. It's really personal finance applied to business, right? Let's prioritize profitability and paying yourself. Leah, any, as you've been working with clients, are there any like caveats or things that you do a little differently or, insights you have on how to make this system really work well for law firms?
I think the biggest thing, what I thought of as you were explaining it, is the owner's pay.
Mm.
I love the owner's pay account because I want you as an owner to start paying yourself with consistency. So what I find a
Yes.
lot of times is law firm owners, they just take what's left over, which is obviously like the whole profit first point is you pay yourself first. But I also want you to do it with consistency. I want you to
Mhm.
say on the first of the month, I am paying myself $5,000 no matter what. Now, if you're an S Corp or C Corp, you need to be on, payroll and all of that. But like, I find that
Yeah.
they do forget to pay themselves. And so you cannot stabilize cash flow or the plan unless you operate in a way that you want to operate. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times when I first start working with clients, that's one of the first things I do is I say, did you transfer your money this month? And I have had clients where I meet with them every month on the 15th and I'll say,
Yeah.
did you transfer your money this month? Oh no, I forgot. The credit card bill was higher and this was higher. No, go back and transfer your money to yourself. And so like, that's my favorite part. When I'm looking at percentages, a lot of the time I separate out wage expense from OpEx. So in Profit First, it's all
Hmm.
lumped into one OpEx. For my business, I have it all lumped into one just because it's easier for me to do the numbers that way. But when I'm looking at clients' financials, we separate out the wage expense because what that can show you is, if 60% of your revenue is paying your people,
Yeah.
you have an operational issue. You should be generating more revenue, especially in a law
Mm.
firm. If you are spending 60% of your revenue on your people, you should be generating more revenue. And so that tells you that there's some operational issue within, your cases. Are we not billing enough? Are we not collecting? Are we not getting cases to the finish line? Are we not distributing money out of the trust account? Who is the bottleneck in this? And so that number
Yeah.
shows you that bottleneck. And so that's the one thing I do a little bit different for clients is I separate out the wage expense from the OpEx. And then I also separate out marketing expenses just so we can kind of see, there.
Yeah.
And so, I'll do percentages a little bit differently there. But for my clients that do Profit First, we still do the transfers like Profit First. But then when we're doing the planning, we're looking at it a little bit different.
Yeah, I love that. And you can customize it for you. You can add more sub accounts. You can make it even more granular and detailed. I think that's a great idea of separating out the wages because that is such a big expense for so many firms. And you want to make sure you're meeting payroll. You want to make sure you're paying your people. But I'm so glad you mentioned owner's comp and why you're so passionate about it because I'm passionate about it too. As a financial planner for law firm owners, we want to make sure that you are paying yourself because it's so hard to build wealth, to get out of debt, to save money for retirement if you are not paying yourself a consistent salary from your business. And you won't know true profitability in your business unless you are actually paying yourself a real market wage. Now, here's a deeper question for you, Leah. Okay, let's say my firm is not having a profitable quarter, do I still pay myself the same amount?
Absolutely. Every single
Love it.
time.
Yes. Tell us why.
But here's the thing. When you're
Yeah.
planning for the future, what is your reasonable salary that you're going to be paying yourself, your owner's comp? And that's
Yeah.
why in the Profit First system, there's two different accounts here. There's owner's comp and there's profit. So you're
Yes.
paying yourself. And obviously, if you're not an S Corp, you're like taking distributions, but it's still like for our purposes, we'll call it a salary. You're deciding I'm paying myself $5,000 a month. That fits within our budget. That should, fit into we're saving money for cash flow. Like if cash flow is low this month, We have money in savings so that we can pay ourselves. So you're still going to be paying yourself that reasonable salary. So if you're an S Corp, you're paying yourself a reasonable salary. Absolutely. Every single month. We are going to plan our cash flow so we can do that. If your salary has to be a little bit lower because cash flow is a little tight, that's fine, but still pay yourself every month. And then if we have a really good quarter or year, I like to do it by quarter. Let's look at that profit account. Is there extra in there? And then you get an extra distribution. And so you're paying yourself, but then you get a little bit more. So you don't need to pay yourself, $15,000 a month if you're only making 20. We're paying ourselves 5,000 a month, and then at the end of the quarter, we're taking a little bit more in profit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you agree there. I'd rather you access the line of credit in your business if you need to, rather than stopping paying yourself and then accruing personal credit card debt. Figure out what your baseline is, what you need to pay yourself, to feed your family, to pay your mortgage, to pay your utilities and your bills, and pay yourself, right? Don't skimp out on that.
Well,
Really, really important.
That brings up a good point, because I, on one of my first calls, every time, I first bring on a new client, I'll say, how much do you have to make a month? And they're like, as much as I can. Or I want to make $1 million a year. And I'm like, great, so do I. Like, we all want to make $1 million a year. Good goal. But how much do you actually have to make? And I did this in my business. I know how much money I have to make, and I have made all my hiring decisions based off of that, because I have to provide, my family. And so I would say 75% of the law firms that I take on as clients, they have no idea. They're like, I just do whatever I can. And so I say, before our next meeting, I want you to go back and I want you to think, and it's a personal decision. If you come back and you say, Leah, I have to have $20,000 a month. Great. This is what we're going to do to get there.
Yeah.
I just want you to be honest with yourself so that you aren't charging, your personal expenses to the business. That's something we do a lot of work on. We want to,
yes.
Because again, you're not going to know true profit if you're swiping your card for all your, if you're going and buying clothes and swiping your card and you're, all of those things. You're using the business money already. Pay yourself a salary instead of swiping the business card. So you have to know your personal finances before you can even really make a plan for the business.
Huge, huge, huge. And that is the magical power of when your financial planner and your bookkeeper and your CFO can work together really, really well. So we do that a lot for our law firm owner clients. Let's figure out what is the core monthly budget on the personal side that you need to be paying yourself from the business. Okay, now let's talk to your CFO. Let's get everybody on board. Let's make sure we've got a really good, solid plan. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's I'll give my little spiel on bookkeeping. There's bookkeeping for tax purposes, which is a lot of when you think of bookkeeping, that's what you think of. You have to have bookkeeping done for taxes. I like doing bookkeeping in a way where you can use the data to make financial decisions. So you want to make sure, you're breaking out your wages in there and not just lumping it with everybody else. So you know how much you're paying yourself, and you want to make sure you have your financials organized enough so when people come to you or they come to me for CFO services, we can actually make heads or tails of the finances, and we can advise them on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very cool, Leah. This has been great chatting with you. I have a couple last questions here. We mentioned our masterclass series where we're reading a different book each quarter. Last book we read, A Random Walk Down Wall Street, which was a lot of fun. And this quarter we're reading Profit First, of course. And I know lawyers and people who work with lawyers were readers and we're avid fans of business books. So I would love to hear from you. Is there something that you're reading right now that you're really enjoying?
My favorite business book this year, which I think it's right behind me, is Buy Back Your Time.
Yes.
It was life-changing for me in my business when I finally gave up control and hired people that I knew I could hire because, I had planned that out with my budget, but it took me way too long to do that. And so in the last 6 months, it's been life-changing for me where there's days I'm like, oh, there's no like crazy crisis happening right now that I have this amazing team that I hired. So that is probably the most, besides Profit First, that is probably the most life-changing business book I've read this year, and just changed the way that I do everything in my business.
Love it. We actually read Buy Back Your Time last year. It truly is one of those great books. And it was transformative for me too in building my business. And now I've got my executive assistant. I have my planners working for me. So most of the client delivery work is handled. The admins know someone's in my inbox doing all my emails, so I don't have to fret about that. And I can really focus on, helping lead and run and grow the business, which is really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Leah, in closing, would you tell our audience just a little bit about what you do and where folks can find you?
So I am a former paralegal firm administrator, CFO of a law firm. So I have law firm experience. And so I do fractional CFO work. And I also have a team that does bookkeeping for law firms as well. We focus only on law firms. I have a couple non-law firm clients, but primarily law firms. And I am on LinkedIn. You can find me on there. I post several times a week. Love getting to be involved in that conversation. I love chatting with law firm owners, just kind of, chatting business. I do get into like some of the operations when it comes to finances because I lived it. Or you can go to my website, which is firmlyprofits.com, and I offer free consultations. Just learn more about your firm and let you know how we can help you, or if we can help you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Leah, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great chatting with you. Well, a huge thank you to Leah Miller for joining me today and sharing her insights on cash flow and Profit First. Make sure to check out the show notes for the links to connect with her and learn more about her work. What I love about this topic is the fact that I've actually lived it myself. I've used Profit First in my own business for several years, and yes, it completely changed how I operate. From constant cash flow anxiety and tallying up an Excel spreadsheet every week to see how I would end the quarter, to calm confidence, knowing exactly where my money is and what it's for. Here at The Lawyer Millionaire, this is exactly the kind of work that we help law firm owners do, building intentional financial systems, gaining clarity around the numbers, and using the data to run their firms proactively instead of reactively, so that the business actually supports the life you're trying to build. And this year inside the Lawyer Millionaire community, our whole theme is Profit on Purpose. And Profit First is just one of the core books we're working through together. We're hosting monthly masterclasses to help law firm owners like you actually apply these concepts, not just read about them. And if you want access, the link to join is in the show notes. And remember, friend, the ultimate form of wealth is, of course, freedom. I'm your host, Darren Wirtz. This is The Lawyer Millionaire. I'll see you next time.
Are you a law firm owner looking to build real wealth and break free from the daily grind? On the Lawyer Millionaire podcast, we share practical strategies to grow your practice, maximize profits, and create the financial freedom you deserve. Join host Darren Wars as he interviews top experts and successful law firm leaders who share their secrets. Don't just practice law, build a legacy. Listen now to The Lawyer Millionaire wherever you get your podcast. The Lawyer Millionaire podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended as legal, tax, or investment advice. Listeners should consult with a qualified professional before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Darren Wars or Lawyer Millionaire Wealth Advisors.